Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching the Midday Report and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Let's begin. Wednesday brought another major takeaway from the European Union as the bloc's ministers agreed on a deal watering down a proposed 2040 target for cutting planet warming emissions and set a new 2035 climate plan. To get more on what the redesigned deal is going to look like, we are now joined by our EU correspondent Angela Skujins, who is in Brussels and has the latest. Good afternoon, Angela. So what is going to be different about this watered down 2040 target?
Good afternoon, Claudia. So the European Commission initially proposed a scaling back of greenhouse gas emissions by the end of the decade, bringing this down to 90% with a carve-out that 3% of this could be offset through the purchase of carbon credits. However, due to marathon talks here in the Belgian capital that stretched into early Wednesday morning, this carbon credit initiative has been increased to 5%. This is against the advice of the climate advisors to the European Union that argue that this is an unhealthy divestment away from the investment that really needs to occur within the European Union. However, we know that Poland was among a handful of countries that were firmly opposed to the 90% target. In general, we did hear an official from Warsaw explain his opposition to this 90%.
It's difficult to decide because it's the climate policy. It's now hardwired with industrial policy, with economic policy. So for everyone, is a very tough decision and it's tough choices. So I don't expect this will be any easier. But the good thing is, and the good news is that we have a text and now we'll work on it.
Christoph Balesta is speaking there. He is State Secretary from the Ministry for Climate and Environment, speaking to reporters after those talks wound up early Wednesday morning. We did hear that reprieve was garnered through the Danish ministry. We know that Denmark is chairing the EU Council presidency. That Minister Lars Agard said that this new target is a healthy balance between competitiveness as well as protecting the environment. What also is important as part of this new target is there is another carve-out so that if Europe's economy does prove to be impacted by the new goals, it can be revised by the end of the decade. But this is not the end of the road for this initiative. It needs to be debated once again and approved in European Parliament.
Thank you so much. This was Angela Skujins reporting live from Brussels. And now let's move to Prague. Wednesday will decide who is going to be the next speaker of the Czech Parliament. And the frontrunner in the race is Tomio Okamura, the leader of the far-right Freedom and Direct Democracy Party. Okamura is the most likely contender to win as he secured the backing of the newly formed governing coalition, which includes his party. What could this choice mean for the Czech Republic as Okamura's position is rooted in anti-immigration and anti-Ukraine sentiments? Andrew Sweeney joins me now live from Prague. Hello, Andrew. So why is the idea of Okamura becoming the next Speaker of the Parliament a cause for concern to some people?
Well, the former Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Petr Fiala, described him as a security risk when he was addressing MPs earlier today, saying that he supports a Czechia of the EU and NATO and closer ties with Russia and a cut in defence spending. Now, unless there's a spectacular surprise in the Parliament today, Okamura will become the next President of the Chamber of Deputies and will represent Czech MPs abroad and, more importantly, perhaps preside over debates. He has long been on the fringes of Czech politics, but now, as part of this new governing coalition with Andrej Babiš, he will be the third most important person in the Czech Republic's constitutional law. That being said, it's still a long way to go before the actual government is formed, and that process will begin in earnest after Okamura is more than likely sworn in as the President of the Chamber of Deputies later today. Back to you.
Thank you so much. That was Andrew Sweeney reporting live from Prague. And from the Czech Republic, let's now move to Belgium. Brussels and Liège airports have joined a group of other European capitals, including Vilnius, Oslo, Berlin, and Copenhagen, all places that were brought to a standstill after unidentified drone and balloon sightings. According to experts, this is yet another provocation in a long strain of incursions orchestrated by Russia as part of its hybrid warfare.
Delays and disruption at the heart of Europe, as Belgium's busiest airport is brought to a standstill overnight by an unauthorized drone, angering stranded passengers.
I'm totally speechless because I have never came across these type of situations.
We're kind of angry about it, but there's nobody to blame, so we'll just be patient and wait for our flight tomorrow.
The sighting on Tuesday evening forced planes to fly in a holding pattern before they were later rerouted to other airports. Liège airport in the country's east was also reportedly affected. It's the latest in a series of sightings and weather balloon incursions that have caused chaos across the EU. European leaders and experts say many of the incidents are likely part of Russia's hybrid war of arson and intimidation, aimed at destabilising support for Kyiv in the Kremlin's war against Ukraine. Earlier this week, unidentified drones breached Belgian airspace above key military sites for a third consecutive night. They're being investigated as a potential espionage operation.
We are currently conducting a thorough investigation. I think we need to know what's going on. What's the objective? Why were these drones there? Was it a hybrid operation by the Russian army or other enemies? It's not yet clear at this stage.
Berlin's Brandenburg airport temporarily closed on Friday following a drone sighting. And Lithuania's Vilnius airport was hit a day earlier, closed for the 6th time in October because of weather balloons flying in its vicinity. In September, Copenhagen Airport and Oslo Airport both had to be closed briefly on separate occasions as a result of drone sightings. As some flights resumed from Brussels on Wednesday morning, the Belgian Civil Aviation Authority and federal police began a hunt for the drone operators. With no end in sight to Russia's aggression in Ukraine, passengers in Europe may well suffer similar delays in the future.
Another day of attacks on Russian energy infrastructure brought tangible results for Ukraine. Overnight on Wednesday, Ukrainian aerial attacks hit the Russian city of Oryol, damaging a thermal power plant. Explosions were also reported in Vladimir, where drones hit an energy facility in the city's suburbs. Here's more.
Videos of the attacks posted by residents were filmed just 1 kilometer from the city's thermal power plant. This is located near the Oryol Techmash defense production facility, which manufactures equipment for servicing and evacuating military vehicles. Oryol region governor claimed that Ukrainian drones were targeting the region and that Russian air defense units destroyed the UAVs. Residents, however, claim it was not a drone attack but a missile strike. Meanwhile, Vladimir region governor reported that drones attacked an energy facility in the suburbs of Vladimir. According to him, despite the strikes, all systems are operating normally.
German defense giant Rheinmetall AG has begun construction on Lithuania's largest ever defense investment, a €300 million ammunition plant in Baisogala to produce up to 100,000 artillery shells annually by 2027. In an exclusive interview for TVP World, Colonel Vaidotas Malinionis, managing director at the National Defense Foundation, explained that the facility will produce 155mm caliber ammunition, the type used by the Ukrainian army against Russian forces.
Also, similar facility is also being built in Ukraine, and also by 2026 it will be operational. The Rheinmetall will be producing in Lithuanian ground main artillery shells, 155 millimeters, and we know that from experience that this ammunition was the main ammunition which Ukrainians were using against Russian troops. And initially, this war even was called like artillery war. But later on, of course, with the introduction of newest technologies like drones and artificial intelligence, this war also switched to another a little bit shape. But nevertheless, this type of 155 millimeters caliber ammunition is still very important, and it will the production, of course, it will allow probably to support additionally Ukraine and also to fulfill our storages with that ammunition in case of need.
Now time to move to Turkey. According to media reports, the country's government is negotiating a new gas supply deal with Russia as the previous contract ends this coming December. Turkey is the second largest buyer of the commodity from Moscow after China, while also being a NATO member. This announcement comes only weeks after Donald Trump urged NATO members to stop buying Russian energy.
Turkey is a major consumer of natural gas and is looking to secure supplies from Russia. According to Bloomberg, both countries are engaged in talks over a new gas supply deal after the current one ends in December.
Our energy partnership is of genuinely strategic nature. Russia is one of the key suppliers of natural gas to Turkey.
Turkey has been a major customer of Russia, buying 22 billion cubic meters of the commodity, around 40% of what it consumes, just last year. This is partly due to the country having not one, but two separate gas pipeline connections with Russia. Turkey also buys gas from other suppliers, but Russia is the controversial one, since Turkey is a NATO member. NATO members have been pressured by US President Donald Trump to stop buying Russian energy.
Donald Trump asked countries like Bulgaria, Slovakia, Hungary and Turkey to end reliance on Russian supply. It will take time, but we see the diversification has started.
Turkey also plays a role of conduit for Russian gas to southern Europe. But due to Bulgaria's intention to stop the commodity flowing through its pipeline starting 2028, this transit will be dead.
This was not how anyone expected a conference marking 80 years since the founding of the United Nations at the University of Warsaw to unravel. Tensions flared as a student waving a Palestinian flag interrupted Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, accusing him of supporting genocide and demanding sanctions against Israel. Sikorski held his ground, urging calm and insisting that universities must remain places for debate, even on the world's most divisive conflicts.
Nie, proszę zostawić tą panią.
No, please leave her. Please let her speak.
Jesteśmy na uniwersytecie.
This is a university.
Poglądy, prawda, magnificencjo?
People are allowed to have different views, right, Rector?
Wysłuchać tego, co ja mam do powiedzenia.
I only ask that you listen to what I have to say as well.
Właśnie jeszcze nie.
Wypiera pan ludobójstwo w Palestynie i nie zamierzamy słuchać więcej. Żądamy embarga i sankcji na Izrael.
Na uniwersytecie...
At a university, it's worth hearing different arguments.
Wtedy, gdy wielokrotnie...
I don't know if the Israeli ambassador is with us today, but I'm sure he wasn't pleased when I repeatedly criticized both Israel's excessive use of force in Gaza and its illegal settlements in the West Bank. At the same time, we must not forget what triggered Israel's operation in Gaza. It began with Hamas's unprecedented terrorist attack.
For more from Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, join us for On the Record at TVP World with Adam Yasser at 8:30 p.m. CET. This was a big day for Polish transplantology. Exactly 40 years ago, legendary cardiologist Professor Zbigniew Religa conducted the first successful heart transplant surgery in Poland. That very operation changed the field of heart surgery forever.
40 years ago, when Zbigniew Religa entered the operating room to perform Poland's first successful heart transplant surgery, many people didn't believe he'd be able to meet the challenge. But the cardiosurgeon was determined to prove them wrong.
I truly believe this is an established treatment method. Transplants have nothing to do with medical experiments.
The surgery revolutionized Polish medicine and forever changed the people who witnessed it firsthand. Its impact is visible in this film prepared by Katowice's Medical University of Silesia.
This first transplant was a bizarre experience for us. We saw the heart harvested from one chest and then just taken to a room next door and put inside a different chest. The transplant, to see this heart beating, it was unforgettable.
Religa and his team wanted to help Warsaw catch up with more medically advanced countries.
Heart transplants are routinely performed around the world. In many countries and medical centers, they'll do 2 to 3 procedures weekly. For many heart conditions, transplantation is the only treatment.
Science and technology have progressed in leaps and bounds since Zbigniew Religa held a scalpel, but he's still regarded as a pioneer of cardiology. Recently, doctors successfully transplanted a pig heart into a human patient and completed a transplant of a heart that had stopped beating. And earlier this year, surgeons in Texas carried out the world's first fully robotic heart transplant.
And so this would be all the latest news for now here at the Midday Report. Thank you so very much for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more in just a little.